Thank you. Welcome everyone to today's session. Today we're going to be looking at 3 aspects of PMO. Previously, we've talked about different areas, change, rate management, and last week we talked based on project financial management. So this week we will be talking on stage gate management, stakeholders management, as well as meeting facilitation. We'll start sharing my screen now. Can we all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so today our focus is on stage gate management. What is a stage gate management? Does anybody have an idea? Have you ever heard of that term before?
And like milestones?
Not quite. Milestones is different from stage gates, but yeah, you could say is a milestone in a project, but they're quite different because you could have multiple milestones within a stage that needs to be achieved.
I would like to ask,
yes, please.
so is it like the different tasks or deliverables?
Yes, almost there.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, these are the, well, this is my thinking. These are the phases within the life cycle. So moving from one phase of the project to the other. In a construction project, you could have design stage or design phase to construction. So these are stages, so you have a gate between one phase to the other. So they call it stage gate. That's my answer.
Yes, correct. So stage gate is the project management approach that is adopted to ensure that there's a quality control checkpoints on what the project has been agreed upon. So indirectly means like project is being divided into different stages or different phases, and there are gates to those phases. So before the project progresses to the next stage, there is a gate in between it to say, yes, this is what we have done in this phase or in this stage. Are you happy with it and all of that? So that's what we are going to be talking about today. Yeah. So it's more like a checkpoint, right? That is in place, especially being set up by the PMO to make sure that the agreed project objectives are being delivered. So it simplifies a complex project, saying, okay, we wanted to, the example I've always been given is around the iPhone, migrating from iPhone or upgrading it from iPhone 11 to iPhone 12. There are different features that we need to include in those iPhone. There are different things that we needed to do to make sure that the iPhone is fit for purpose. So stage gate is, so they need to break that down into more like a work breakdown structure, but it includes different phases or stages. So it helps to simplify complex projects into smaller chunk that is that people can relate with, or the project team can relate with. It helps the project team to be able to understand, okay, for this phase, this is what we need to do, and these are the requirements, these are the responsibility, things are required from me. So and it also helps with project life cycle, right? If you understand the different project life cycles, it is dependent on the type of the project. So some of them call it different names. I've been in organizations that have it as opportunity assessment. That's what I have used here. And some of them have called it initiation. So opportunity assessment is when they are assessing the idea. Some even call it, if it's a like a product launch now, they will call it a discovery phase. So dividing the project into different phases and assign tasks or deliverables to each of those phases so that we can say, okay, we wanted to, another example is I want to make a tea now. I need to say, okay, I need to put water into the kettle. I need to turn on the kettle. I need to get my tea bag. I need to get my tea bag into my teacup. I need to pour my hot water, make sure that I'm away from it, to have something to protect me from getting burned, things like that. Just breaking it into chunks is what stage gate is. And as a PMO, you come in to help with this process to make sure that the process is robust and to make sure that the agreed objectives or deliverables for each of the phases are being followed by the project team. And so you have different phases. Some people call it opportunity assessment, scope development, scope refinement, execution, operate and handover. Whereas some would call it initiation, development. So opportunity assessment or initiation is just the phase where you had to investigate into the details. Ruby is raising hand. Hi, Ruby.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Sorry, please, can you clarify what will determine when maybe like between the gates? So what will determine that this must like the
So as you're joining, if
has finished and it's opening to the next phase?
yes, there are key. When you join an organization, any organization you join, there's one thing you should ask for as a PMO, as a PM person, whatever role. What is their governance framework? And the governance framework, we talked a bit about governance last week as well. Governance is a framework is saying, okay, for this type of project, these are the key deliverables that needs to be delivered. We'll still talk about this in terms of what you need to know. So in the governance frameworks, it will talk about what are the different deliverables for each of the phases of the project. Is always highlighted there. And it is also being provided by the SME people, the subject matter experts alongside the project managers. They will give you direction to say at the beginning of this project, these are the key things that needs to be done. So they are broken down and they are usually in the investment management framework or governance framework. They will highlight it to say this project will go through this type of project or complexity or value. We need to go through these phases of the project delivery. It will be opportunity assessment, development. So this is just an overview. So it might not be the same name in here when you go into an organization, right? But the logic is you understand that projects are broken into different phases or stages. And before it can progress from one stage to the other, it needs to pass through a gate. And passing through a gate is means that there's a checkpoint of certain things that has been agreed that needs to be done at that initial stage. If that has been done, if we can progress to the next phase. So that is but in terms of the deliverables that needs to be delivered, it's not something you would worry too much about because it would have been laid out in your governance framework. And you can always ask with the senior stakeholders or the SMEs to guide you in terms of the deliverables. We'll talk about deliverable trackers because during the ladder back down, we did something when we're doing the migration and we broke this down into some of the deliverables that needs to happen. So, and for each of the gates as well, there is always a decision. There is an approach for each of the gates and there is a decision that is expected from when you go through a project stage gate. So there is a scope development, there's scope refinement. At these stages, there are bits of documentations and deliverables that are expected from the project team. And you as a PMO person as well, you have your form of deliverables as well that you need to create, or you need to make sure is available when the project is starting out, or if you join the project, even after the project has started, right? Refinement is more like when they have to do a detailed design of all that is required, like mapping it from one stage to the other of everything that is required for the delivery of the project. And as the project progresses in the stages, the amount of investment in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of resources increases alongside ways. And execution is the delivery phase, where you have to deliver and test and validate and do all sorts of different things to make sure that the project has met its objectives. And then operate and handover is where you hand it over to the business team. So this one, most of the deliverables at this stage are usually from the business change, where they have to make sure that whatever has been agreed, project objectives, is ready to be incorporated into the business. And each of these phases comes with different stage gates. And the reason, what's the objective? Why do we need stage gates, right? Stage gate is also to help the senior stakeholders to make sure that, yes, this project is still viable. We can continue to deliver this project. Because, as I mentioned earlier, as the project is progressing in the stages, more money will be required, more resources will be required. So it helps the business, the sponsors, to say, okay, yes, there is this investment that we understand at the beginning is still viable, we can still continue with it. So you support the business investment justification. You also guide the project delivery team from discovery to launch. It's more like it provides like a pipeline of work that needs to be done. So everybody is ascertain or understand what is required of them at each stage of the project. You also provide an approval. So for the senior stakeholders or the key people that needs to be in the project, they need to be able to know, okay, yeah, we approve the plan. The plan is still going ahead, the plan is clear enough, there's enough clarity, there's enough information for us to be able to make this decision and budget and scope. So that is what the objective is all about for stage gate. Okay, so what are the benefits and what are the approaches and decisions that happens in stage gates? We have, like I mentioned, it simplifies complex projects, and it helps the project to, rather than having it like, oh yeah, we wanted to deliver this project, we'll just run with it as it comes. No, there will be a lot of ambiguity, there will be a lot of uncertainty, there will be a lot of misinformation across the whole project team if there isn't anything like stage gate to guide. This is what we need to do at this stage, and this is what is expected of us. So it helps to simplify complex projects, and it also promotes timely investment decision making. This is in form of the business saying, okay, yeah, this project, this is what we intended to invest in it at the initial stage. But looking at it like this, I don't think the project is going to deliver what has been agreed. I think we need to put this project on hold. We need to reinvest the money into another project. Or, oh yeah, the project is moving on there. So help them to make that timely decision, because before the project can progress to the next stage, because of the agreed deliverables, they are able to know, okay, the way it is progressing now, it's still something viable. We can still make our benefits and return on investment on it. It provides roadmap for pipeline of work, clarity for project team to know what is expected. It also encourages cross-functional team collaboration. So if someone is the one, if functional consultants or this different arms of test team, the design team, it helps them to collaborate together to know what is expected of them, and even collaborate with external project team to be able to say, okay, these are the agreed objectives, this is what we needed to do before we can progress into a next phase. Some organization in some software or agile environment, they can call it different release as well. So maybe they wanted to have a release 1, and that release 1 is now being broken down into different phases of how they want to engage with the customer or the product or the different project team. Also highlight priorities and support success in terms of direction. So yeah, we wanted to progress with it, we can go ahead with the way it is going. So it helps the senior stakeholders to make that decision or that direction in terms of project progress. It also highlights early warning of risk. So if there is a risk that has been identified at the beginning of the project and it's not being tracked, or there isn't any information about it, even though there is a risk log or risk register that has captured it, because of stage gates, they would want to ask as many questions. That stage gates also involves external and internal stakeholders to review the project, that phase of that project, before you can go to the next stage. So you could have the likes of PwC, Accenture, all these other companies that will come in and do an audit of what has been agreed. You know, at the beginning of the project, it's been agreed that we will deliver this set of deliverables, and those deliverables are now broken down into phases. So before you can progress to the next phase, there will be like some form of audit or checkpoint. That's what the gate is for. So any risk that has been highlighted, maybe at the beginning, it helps them to check and say, okay, what is happening to this risk? How are we managing this risk? Is this risk reducing even as we are progressing on the project? And yeah, it also helps with stakeholders accountability, you know, because everyone that is involved in the project knows what is expected of them. They are accountable to what they needed to do. So there's that accountability as well. And it helps to build lesson learned. What did we do right in the last stage of the project? So maybe we're in stage 2 now. What went well? Are we engaging our stakeholders well? Did we manage the finance properly? Did we highlight, or are we able to identify risk properly? So it helps to build lesson learned and process or project improvement as the project is progressing. They're able to pick on some of the shortfalls or some of the things that they didn't do well, some of the things that they actually did well and they could improve upon. So stage gates always help and support with that. And the approach for the stage gate is it's always a structured approach. What I mean by structured is there is always a defined process for a stage gate. You can't just say, oh, my project needs to go through phase this next week or something. It has to be a structured approach because there are criteria that phase needs to have been met. So you need to make sure that those criteria are well clearly defined, and the deliverables as well, there are agreed deliverables. Those deliverables need to have been delivered before you can say, yeah, your project needs to come to stage gate. And PMO coordinates all of these activities to say, okay, what are the projects? There are so many things that could be used. It could be the project plan that could be used. It could be the budgeting, and even the deliverables. There are key things that needs to have happened at each phase of that project. So they have a deliverable tracker to make sure that these deliverables is being tracked. So they say, okay, this deliverable needs to be delivered in the next 20 days. And they tracking it to make sure that there is an understanding of the progress on the deliverables. So there is a structured approach to stage gates. It's more like, you know, when we talk about project change last time, right? Is this stage gate as well is almost similar. Every project in a structured environment needs to go through stage gates, and they need to make sure that there is there are right stakeholders there to make that decision based on the information that has been provided to them on the project. And then the decisions. So there are few decisions that happen during stage gates. Some of them could go like, yeah, go ahead with the project to the next phase. That means those ones have done everything that is required and is been validated by external peer review team to say, yes, this project is okay, is on board, is delivering what is expected. And then it could be go with the condition. Most of the ones that go with the condition are usually ranked with a number. They have a lot of modifications, a lot of things that needs to be done, and they might need to represent them maybe in the next 1 month or in the next 2 months. Say, okay, based on the condition that we have given for you to progress to the next stage, where are we with that? As those conditions been met? If those conditions have not been met, they'll probably tell them to say, no, we're not progressing. You need to redo that phase of the project to be able to justify the business investment. And other decision could be, no, I don't think, based on what we have identified so far on this project, we think we need to cancel the project, or we need to put a stop on it. We are not progressing with it. There is no, and it could be in a software environment, things are changing rapidly now. It could be maybe when at the beginning of the project, there is a need to solve a problem or a solution or a service or a product. And maybe as the project is progressing and the way the world is changing so quickly, they just thought, okay, no, this is not going to meet what we wanted it to meet as originally planned. So we're going to put a stop on that. So it helps them to even save, it saves them from spending money or resources and all of that on the project. And also some of them could be, we want to put this project on hold. We needed more information or further review needs to be done before we can invest for that on the project. So those are some of the decisions that you get in stage gate. I will go to Deliverable Tracker. So it's very common in stage gate, during stage gates. The key things for me, based on my experience, that are very common is you need to have a deliverable tracker. Even though you have a plan, a project plan will contain all of the different tasks, all of the different activities that needs to happen. But because of the stage gates, these ones are tied to deliverables. Whereas a project plan is tied to deliverables, they're tied to activities, they're tied to resources, they're tied to so many things. But for stage gate, it's tied to key deliverables that needs to happen at that phase or stage of the project. And so as a PMO, you create a deliverable tracker. It's like a checklist register to capture agreed project objectives. So for phase 1 now, there are key documents that may say we needed it to be done. It will be the initial draft of the business case, or initial project brief, or risk register, or it could be a PID. So it will have those documentations. As I mentioned earlier, there will be, all this documentation will be in your governance framework, highlighting what is expected for each phase of the project. So the deliverable tracker will help you to know what are the required deliverables for that phase. Because sometimes, depending on the type of the project and the complexity or the value of the project, is not all the deliverables that will be applicable to them, right? So deliverable tracker will help you to know which of the deliverables are required at this stage, which one are not required at this stage, and then which of these stages or gates does this project need to go through. You also say, yeah, if some deliverables are not required, maybe by exception, not necessarily because they are not meant to deliver it, you need to give a justification. So you have that in your deliverable tracker saying there should be a justification to why those deliverables will not be delivered. And it also helps you to understand the version of the deliverables. So for a stage 1, stage 2, an example of a deliverable I would say is a business case now. Business case needs to be updated all throughout the lifespan of the project, throughout the life cycle, from the initiation to the end of it. and you have different version of it. So you would probably have initial version, like it would say initial business case, or it could be updated one. So as you're progressing, as things are changing, the justification of the project is changing, or the money that has been invested on it is changing, you need to update those deliverables as the project is progressing. And then it helps you to understand the status of it. So maybe a project is due to go through gate in the next 2 months now. The deliverable tracker will help you to see what's the status of it. Do we have any issues with this deliverable? Are we on track to deliver this deliverable? And you tend to put the status on it to say, okay, is red or is amber. Amber means, oh yeah, there's a risk on these deliverables, but it's something that could still be met before the stage gate. And one thing I wanted to bring to your attention as well is that at the beginning of the project, there's a timeline that is being assigned to the project. So because the projects are being broken down into different stages and phases, they also have a timeline for each of the stages. So you would say for stage 1 now, we will deliver it in the next 2 months. And that is why I said this also helps with project plan when they are creating a project plan. So you can say for phase 1, it would be delivered or will come to gate in the next 2 months. For phase 2, that will come in the next 2 months as well. So there are different timeline that has been agreed at the beginning of the project, right? So that would help you to be able to even track some of the deliverables that has been agreed as well, to say, okay, what's the status of it? I have created one template that we can just play around with, but I haven't put a lot of information in it. And then in terms of the deliverables, the project deliverables, we have what is called, RACI. RACI is the responsible, the accountable, consulted, informed. But for gate reviews and for stage gates, you have the 5th person or 5th group of people. They are the peer review people. These are the people that are not related to the projects. They will be the one to come and peer review and validate that project is going to meet its objective or has met that objectives or that deliverable for that particular stage of the project. So they are more like the auditors that will audit that deliverable to say, yes, it's been done, and they can give it a go or no go decision. Every one of them, everyone that is responsible have got different tasks and responsibility on the project in terms of the racing. Yes, so we have the deliverable version. It could be initial, it could be updated, or it could be the final deliverable for that phase of the project, right? And you could have different rack status for it as well. So depending on how the deliverable is tracking to agreed timeline. Okay, so this is a deliverable tracker receipt, right? It shows for each of the deliverables who is responsible for it, who is accountable. Most of the people that sign off are more of the accountable people, like the project sponsors and the peer review people. They are the ones that peer reviewed. They are not related to the project. The peer review team, they are not related to the project. They are the ones that would say, yeah, that project is fit for purpose, and the agreed objectives or deliverable for that stage has been met. You as a PMO, you need to have your deliverable tracker to make sure that you have the right deliverables being tracked, to make sure that the deliverables are the versions that is in there. So the version could be initials. Even your version that is initial as well, it needs to be version controlled. You could have version 0.1 as the initial draft, version 0.5 as the final draft or final initial one for that stage of the project. So the consulted people, they contribute and review the documents as well. The informed people are just people that you just need to keep them informed. They don't really have much involvement in the project deliverables, but they need to be kept informed of how the project is progressing. But the most people that have a lot of work is the responsible one. They are the ones that create the project deliverables. They issue it for peer review. They issue it for sign-off. PM also come in here to support with the sign-offs to make sure that it's gone to the right stakeholders, and the right stakeholders are reviewing it, and also have a timeline, because before everyone is very busy. They have a timeline to how long it would take for them to be able to sign off that deliverable. So PMO help in chasing this and supports them as well. And then they circulate the information as required. That's the responsible one. I will give an example of what we did in Ladback Down project last year, of how we did the different deliverables that is expected. So this was what I picked this from one of our documents that we used, right? And it just shows who needs to be informed, who is accountable for the project, who is responsible. You can see the responsible ones. You can see where the PMOs, Scrum Masters, and the PMs, where they are involved. And you can see, depending on the deliverables, right? Although this didn't break it down into phases, it just broke it down into different requirements of what is required, like during that project phase, and assign the RACI to it to say, okay, these are the people that are responsible for this. These are the people that you need to consult for when you're working on this document or creating this document. See, PMO is responsible for quite a number of them. Change management, record management, steering group pack, weekly reporting, and even you can say the PM as well. PM is also responsible for a lot of things as well. Yeah, so this is more like a RACI matrix that is used for understanding that project deliverable tracker. After this slide, towards the end of the session, I will share with us a copy of the deliverable tracker that was created. Okay, so roles and responsibility. I have mentioned this. PMO creates the deliverable tracker. You manage and update it, which helps to support the project governance to make sure that everything that is meant to be done is done with the right stakeholders, right? And then the right stakeholders sign off as well. You want to make sure that the right people are the ones signing off the document as a PMO. You make sure that the document is saved in the right folders, is accessible to the right project team. Their version control, and then you set up the gate review sessions. So you have most of the organization, it depends on them. Yeah, they have like a tracker as well for gates review, where the project team will say, or the project manager will come to the PMO and say, yeah, my project is tracking on this, and we are due to go to gates, maybe gates 2 in the next 1 month. When is the available time slot for gate review? So you as a PMO, because you already have, so you need to set up a gate review sessions anyway as a PMO person. It could be once every month, depending on how big the program you are in, or depending on how busy the program is. So you could have every week if you are within a portfolio environment, or you could have every month, once every month, or you could have twice every week. The frequency of the gate reviews is dependent on the program that you're working on and how busy they are, but you need to have one every month. Unless you are just a project, maybe a single project PMO, you might not necessarily be involved in that, but there is a form of assurance or governance that needs to be put in place to make sure that before a project progresses from one stage to the other, it's being signed off and approved by the right project stakeholders. And yeah, you capture the actions. You can be asked to create a report as well. So when you are creating a dashboard, we haven't talked about reporting in this session, but when you are creating a dashboard, there are some of the questions around gates or stage gates that you need to provide to the senior stakeholders so that they know how the project is progressing or how the program is progressing, to say, okay, we have 2 projects that are coming to gate in the next 2 weeks and their deliverables are on track. So those are the kind of reporting that you need to create when you are creating a report for stage gate. And it's almost similar to PMO lead. PMO lead is more like overseeing some of the things that are required for stage gate and making sure that the right process, standard, and governance are in place. And if there's any need for any escalation to beyond that stage gate, so it could be that there's some escalation that comes with the stage gates, the PMO person will take that forward to the right forum to make sure that they get a decision and direction on how to progress it. And with stage gates, right, some projects try to bring in some, because they are moving to the next stage, right, they would request for approval of their budget. So some of the drawdown of the original budget. So maybe at the beginning, they've given them a budget of 2 million and they've spent 10,000 or 100,000 in the first 2 stages, because they are going into the bigger stage of the project where a lot of resources, a lot of time is required. They want to draw down on the original project. So they will say, yes, we want to draw down on this as well. So they bring all of those information alongside to their stage gate. Do we have any question? I'm expecting a lot of question. Hello, everyone.
Well, I'm not sure about others.
Okay, do we have questions? Hi, Hester.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. It's really informative. So what I want to ask, you see the stage gate that you're talking about, is it how does it work with Agile? So that's what I want to really ask, because I don't think it's Agile actually follow it back to back like that. If you can just explain a little bit. Thank you.
Yes, so for it's popular with the waterfall, right? But at the same time, they use it in Agile. You know, for Agile, because of the iterative design and everything, there are still phases that needs to happen. You can't just say, oh, so let's say an Agile sprint is every 2 weeks or every whatever. Within those sprints, there are key deliverables, there are key products, backlog or information or things that needs to be done. So they still break them into phases. It might not be that they go through a rigor of peer reviewing it because of, you know, the regular information updates that they provide to the senior stakeholders or to the project sponsors, you know, because of the way they engage with their stakeholders. So it might not be that rigor like in that way, but complex projects definitely are broken down into phases. And before you even go into another phase, you need to have the right approval, because you will need some resources and you will need money involved in it. So it might not be glaring in terms of your involvement as a PMO or as a PM, but that needs to still happen. There is no way you will see a project that would start from the beginning and would just flow through without any stage gate being involved in it. So regardless of the methodology of the project, there is a stage gate. They might call it a different name, right? But there's usually a phase. Projects are broken down in phases. So it could be discovery, it could be realized, it could be before the testing and validation, before the launch of it. So those phases as well, they are using Agile in software delivery and all of that, but they are all still broken down in phases. And before you progress to the next phase, you need to have that assurance review session happen. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Is this clear to everyone, the way everyone is quiet? Okay. So I'll go to our next thing today. I'm expecting more questions at the end. We are talking about stakeholders management. What is stakeholders management? Just in a layman understanding, what does that mean? Do we want anyone to try? They want to give an idea of what stakeholders management is, or even who are stakeholders?
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. So I start from who are stakeholders.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Stakeholders are those that has interest in that project. It could be everybody within that project that's working on that project, and even the client that gave out the project is still a stakeholder. And the management is how you manage the expectation of these stakeholders, both the downstream guys, the lower guys, and the upstream guys. That's my take.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Do you have any more contribution? I think he has actually seen my slide. That's exactly what I have put in my slide, really. So stakeholders is an individual, anyone that's got an interest in your project, in the success of your project. And it could be an external, internal stakeholders. You could have internal, could be the project team, could be the project sponsors, could be some of the people that the project you are going to deliver is going to impact them in one way or the other. And then the external could be government agencies, it could be public group. Yeah, so stakeholders are people that have one form of stake or the other in your project, in the success of your project. And management is the process of identifying who those stakeholders are, being able to prioritize them, being able to engage them, and being able to manage their expectations to make sure that their expectations are being met. And this is not just a skill for project management, right? It's a skill that everybody needs. It's about relationship management, making sure that you have the right relationship expectations within your project or even in life, and managing those expectations for those people. So, but we'll relate it to the domain of project, which is everyone that's got one form of impact on the project, and how you can manage their expectations, how you can make sure that their expectations are met. So the first thing you would need to do, even as anyone, if you are joining a new organization, you need to have that skill called stakeholders management. And what you need to do when you're joining any organization, after you've been given, or this is your line manager, or this is your, and then the governance framework, you need to understand who are the stakeholders. You need to start asking questions. Who are these stakeholders? Who do you need to meet with? Start asking questions, and when you have an understanding of who they are, like maybe, okay, yeah, this person is the one in charge of budget, or this person is the one in charge of resourcing, or this individual is the one in charge of this team. It could be the test team or the development team. So you need to understand who the different people are that you will be engaging with them, and understand what the expectation will be for you. And I've put some, I'll come back to this grid, right? And I've put some question in here to say, what are the expected questions you should be asking them? It's not exhaustive, so you can have as many questions. Just have them prepared before you meet the stakeholders. So what is the reason why you're engaging with the stakeholders at this stage? Is it to just get their opinion? Is it to just get to know who they are? Is it to just get to know what's their power of influence? So reason why you're doing your analysis is you want to understand their level of influence, their power, what interest they have on the project. How is the project going to impact them? So anyone, as we've mentioned or defined who stakeholders are, you need to ask questions from project team, from the project team, from your own internal team, maybe it's the PMO or PM team. Who are the stakeholders? You need to identify what's their level of authority in the organization, even on your project as well. And then when you identify them, you can now have a setup in form of like an interview. You can just say, oh, I just recently joined this organization. Could send it as an email or catch up via Teams. I would like to have a 10-minute conversation with you. And when you have a conversation, you can explain to them what your role is, what you will be doing in the organization, and how you can come in to be able to help them. What will be the top priority for them in terms of deliverables? What are the things that they would want you to support them with first? And another thing when you are having that conversation with them is to find out what is the mode of communication. Are they the type that prefer you to schedule a meeting, not just jumping on them on calls? Or are they the ones that prefer you to just send them an email? Or are they the ones that prefer you, even if you have sent an email, you need to remind them via a chat, a team chat, or a Skype for business chat? So you need to understand, or maybe they are the type that just like a quick face-to-face conversation with a report or something. So you need to understand the mode of communication, what they think is going to be best for them. So you need to ask them that kind of question. So in trying to understand them, you understand their racy on the project, saying, do they need to be consulted for this sort of deliverables? An example is, as a PMO person, you want to introduce a governance approach, or you want to introduce a risk management process, or any of the processes we've talked about. Before you can start anything, you need to understand who your stakeholders are. You need to understand what is their top priority. So that will help you to set the right expectations with them. And when you're setting the right expectations or objectives, you will be able to know how to manage that. And that's why it's very key, not just as a PMO, every role you find yourself in, you need to be having that skill, like the stakeholders management skill, and identifying who your stakeholders are by asking the relevant questions, engaging with them. And once you engage with them, you analyze the responses that you have received from the different team. And that will now bring us back to the level of power. That's when. So you, based on the information you have received and engagement you have had with them, you can know who is a stakeholder that has got the high power, but they are not really fully interested in how the day-to-day of the project is. So you know you need to keep them, you meet their needs and keep them satisfied. Like those people, you don't need to irritate them with regular communications and all of that, but just know their mode of communication and know what they would need. Okay, we have a question from DJ. Oh no, DJ is raising hand, sorry. Hello?
Hello. This is just a question. Like as a PMO, as a new guy that just joined the PMO team, and you've said I need to get to know my stakeholders. And if I'm within a small team and we're all in an open office,
Mhm.
what's the best way to communicate with them? Is it to walk around to their tables and or desk and just approach them that way, or do I need to start sending emails to them to have a 10 minutes chat with them first? What's the best
Mm,
way to approach in that regards, please? Thank you.
o- okay, prior to COVID, in my experience, right? Once I join an organization, have the initial conversation with my project team to understand who are the stakeholders. Once they tell me, oh yeah, that man there, Mr. Tim, is the one responsible for this, or Mr. Cooper, he's the one in charge of the design team, I walk up to him. And that's where your interpersonal skills needs to come in as well. I would walk up to them and say, and introduce myself. I would walk up to them and say, oh, hi, my name is Mary. I'm new to the company. I just joined last week. I'm supporting in the PMO team, and I would like to have 1 or 2 10 minutes with you. When is the best time to schedule something in your diary? Or is your calendar up to date? Can I put something in your calendar? And so that's the first approach I would take in an open environment where you can walk up to the stakeholders. I will walk up to them and introduce myself and find a time slot within that. If it's someone that is very top at the eye level and you notice maybe they are not that approachable, I would send it in form of an email saying, okay, even though you've got a very good personality, but based on who they said the person is and the approach, or maybe they are always in a meeting or something, I will send a short email to introduce myself and look for a time in their calendar. So that's the first thing I would do. Based on their feedback or response that I received, then I would be able to now schedule that meeting and start asking questions in terms of trying to understand who they had, their expectations on the project. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I believe that's the best way to do. I don't know. Some of us, as we've experienced some interviews. When you go for interview, and they would ask you after asking those questions, that they will be taking you around each and every staff desk
Mhm,
to introduce you to them. They
mhm,
just want you to be able to place a name on that, on the faces of those guys. And if you're sending an invite through email for the first time, some people will just ignore you because they don't even know you. That
mhm,
who's this? But if you walked up to their desk and introduce yourself, it brings more familiarization. You kind of gain their trust. They kind of relate with you better than you sending an email to them for an
mhm.
invite. If it's a small team and pre-COVID and maybe post-COVID, you can do that, and that will help you a lot. That's my
Yeah,
contribution.
yeah, yes, yes. Yeah, so you need to have a good interpersonal skills as well, because as a PMO, you will be dealing with loads and loads of stakeholders, different people, different character, different personality. So you need to have an open mind, you need to be flexible, and you need to have a very good communication skills and be able to approach people. I don't know if there's anybody that's got any question. So I have here some of the skills that is expected of you as a PMO person. So you need to have a good communication skills, like even in writing and in talking to people. You need to know not to be timid in terms of what you say, but be bold in yourself. They're not going to kill you, they're human being. I just want to introduce myself. I just want to meet you. Very simple. So you need to have that good communication and interaction skills to be able to walk up to anyone and introduce yourself. And even based on what Mr. Deji said, you could have been introduced and they might not even remember you. It's like, oh yeah, I don't think I remember this person. But you can always remind them, oh, I joined last week, or this person brought me to you pre-COVID. I don't know how it is now in office environments, but you can just reintroduce yourself to them and ask for a time to catch up with them later. But if they are readily available, yeah, you can just ask them some of the questions. Make sure that you have your questions at hand. You want to understand how you can come in and support them. What is the top priority for them? And then you need to have good organization and planning skills, because stakeholders don't like surprises. So they want you to be very proactive in the way you approach them, in the way, even with the information that you're going to be sending across them. You need to be able to assess their needs. That's where the needs assessment comes in. You need to be able to, they might not necessarily like say it out, but sometimes they do say it and say, okay, yeah, we would like someone that can hit the ground running, or, oh, our report is really rubbish. If you can pick that up as your top priority, you can say things like that. So you would be able to identify what their needs is. Some of them would just say, wow, we don't have any structure in place in how we're managing our project risk, or in how the approval process is done. Is this something that you can pick up? Yeah, you can just say, hey, I can give it a try. So you can say, yeah, even if you know how to do it, you still need to set the right expectations so that you can always wow the expectations, not going like, yeah, it's something I can do. I'll give it to you in the next 1 week. Whereas you don't even have details of what the work is entails. So you can't just make false expectations. You need to make sure that you're giving them right expectations in saying, I'll come back to you if you don't have the full details of the information. So assessing their needs is very key. Being able to solve problems is also very key. And managing the expectations, it's very, very important. So when I say managing the expectations, if you know that there is a task or there is a request that has been placed on you, be comfortable enough to say no, or be comfortable enough to say, oh, can I pick this up later? I'm really, really preoccupied now. So don't take on things that you know that you will not be able to deliver. And if you are constantly failing in that, you're not meeting your stakeholders' expectations. And that's where there might be some form of problems and issues. So try as much as possible to understand what their need is and understand what is required in meeting those needs before raising your hand and saying, yes, you would be able to do that. So it's a skill that is required across board, not just as a PMO, but in any organization that you find yourself. I think more in Nigeria, it's more like a relationship management, managing those relationships to make sure that they help in delivering projects, objectives, or making your projects to go ahead. Do we have any question? Or do we have any contribution? I'm seeing Goke here.
There's a question on the chat.
I'm not seeing the chat. 1 sec. Oops. Oh, okay, there are. So the question on the chat is differentiate between communication and collaboration. So communication is you being able to pass the right information across to the stakeholders or to anyone, you've been able to make sure that you pass the right information across with the right method, with the right method. It could be in writing, it could be in talking, right? That is communication, passing a message across to someone and making sure that they understand the message you are passing across. Whereas collaboration is engaging, working together with people, being able to work together with people, being able to interact very well with people, being able to, deliver well with people. That's my own way of differentiating between it. They are different, but obviously you need a good communication to be able to collaborate with people. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's fantastic because I've seen it in interviews, people coming in and based on their CVs, the interviewer would ask, you've said you've got communication skill and you've got collaboration skill. Can you differentiate between the two? But I'm just throwing that because you might have these, those skills do pop up when it comes to this kind of environment. So the communication, like she said, could be one-way communication. You're trying to pass information, but when you collaborate, you work as a team, you work with somebody to achieve something or to create something. So it is a skill that you need, though, like as she said, you need communication to be able to form to be able to collaborate and create something. So I just people get that mixed up at times, and that's why I brought that up.
Thank you. Do we have any more contribution before I go to our last thing for today, which is on meeting management? Okay. I hope that there will be questions at the end. Yep. So this one is very, if you're a project world, either as a PMO, as a PM, as a planner, as a BA, as a Scrum Master, you would probably have to be facilitating in some of the meetings. And as a PMO person as well, you will be facilitating a lot of meetings, like so many. So it could be stage gate meeting, it could be risk management session, it could be change approval board session, it could be stage gates that we just talked about today. It could be lesson learned review, it could be deep dive review. So they want to have a deep dive into a particular project. Maybe the project is so complex that no one is understanding. So they want to go into the nitty-gritty of what is happening in that project. As a PMO person, you might be involved in that. And, at the end of it could be every 2 weeks or every month, you tend to provide progress updates on the project as well. So you could be having those status meetings set up as well. So I just thought it would be good to guide people that are very new to this environment on how to do this. Fortunately, my outlook, because I know in the work mode, we always use Outlook, and that's why I've put some things here, but my Outlook is not working. So I don't know if anyone has got Outlook that we can use to show people. So the first thing is the post. There must be a post or an agenda for any meeting that you're setting up. And I've defined post as the purpose. What is the purpose of that meeting that you're setting up? What is the outcome? What are we expected to get out of this meeting? So what is the outcome of this meeting? What is the structure of the meeting? Is it going to be via presentation? Is it going to be via a discussion? Are we discussing on something? Or is there anyone that is coming on and raising an issue or something? And what's the timeline? There needs to be a timeline to it. You can't just set up a meeting. An example, let's say we wanted to talk about change right now, right? So what is the purpose of this? The purpose is to identify and assess change that have been brought to the CAB, and also to be able to make sure that to assess the changes that have been submitted for review and approval. And the outcome will be at the end of this meeting, we would like to get to approval, a decision where we know how many changes have been approved or how many changes have been rejected, and what are the required for the ones that have been rejected, what are the reasons for those rejections, so that we can communicate that to the required project team. And what is a structure? So the structure will be, we have got 10 or 5 changes that have been presented, and we are going to assign 10 minutes for each of the change owners to talk about their changes. So there's a structure in place to say, okay, this change CEO CB001 will be the first one that would talk or tell us about the change or the details of the change. And the next one, just itemize all of those different changes and assign timeline to them, like saying, okay, it needs to be within 10 minutes. And at the end of it, the session is meant to last for 1 hour, not 10 hours or not 2 hours. And as a PMO person, if it's a meeting you are facilitating, there's every probability that the meeting can digress or can go into another conversation, something entirely different. So it's for you to try and bring them back into the core purpose of the meeting. And that's why you have to have set agendas or set purpose for your meeting. And I wanted to show how to set up a meeting. So you make sure that your meetings, you have to be proactive as well in setting up your meetings. So if you know that this is a meeting that is not a one-off meeting, because of people's diaries and calendars can be pretty busy at the beginning of the new year, right? You need to be very proactive in making sure that you set your meetings way ahead. So if it's a meeting that needs to happen, a CAB now, change approval board, is happening every 2 weeks. That one you are aware of. Even there are some of times that maybe when during the CAB you don't have any changes that come. Yeah, you can cancel those sessions. But once you know that these are meetings that needs to happen every time, maybe every 2 weeks in every 2 weeks, you need to set them up in advance so that you block it up in people's calendar and be proactive about it. Check your individual invitees or stakeholders that are meant to be in that meeting and set it up maybe in the next 6 months. Just do it in form of a recurrent meeting. I wanted to show how to do a recurrent meeting, but my Outlook wouldn't work. So you set it up in form of a recurrent meeting so that it stays in people's calendar that this meeting is happening, and you already have a set of agenda. So your agenda and the purpose and the outcome will always be the same. The only thing that might be different is maybe the type of changes that will be coming on into the session. So because of that, you tend to change the informations that are coming into the meetings, but your post must always be there. Like there's a purpose for this meeting, there's an outcome we want to get from it, and there's a structure that has been assigned to it, and there's a timeline. And also you need to track the attendance towards, if it's like a day or two to when the meeting is meant to be, you track attendance. On Outlook, there's a way you go into the meetings and you will see track attendance at the back. So you check and see how many people have accepted this meeting, how many people have declined this meeting, how many people haven't responded at all. So that will help you to set expectations as well. And even the people that have accepted as well, make sure that, well, you don't really need to do anything. But the people that have said none, that haven't done anything, you can just send them an email saying, just checking if you'll be available for this meeting. Because they might be key stakeholders that need to make decisions at those meetings, and it might be last minute that they will be thinking, oh yeah, this meeting has come up, I don't think I'll be able to make it because I have something else that's come up. So making sure that you track those attendance and attach the right documents. I wanted to show a practical session, but our Outlook wouldn't help us. And the other bit where I put add resources, this is just like there might be some people that are not regular attendance into the meeting, checking their availability and adding them from the global, like even if you don't know them, like from the global address book in the company, you can always how to search for them. Even if you don't know their name or you just know maybe one or two of their names, you can just how to search for them, how to check the names to be sure that is the right name before your meeting starts, and making sure that you capture the actions for your meetings and circulate it. So have an SLA. SLA is service level agreement, saying at the end of every meeting, we are going to it could be the change one or the risk one. We will communicate the outcome of the meeting to everyone that are in attendance or those that are not in attendance in the next one day. So it's more like sending out the actions or minutes. Well, it depends on the organization. Some people do minutes, but I don't do minutes. So you'd send out the actions. Our actions are at eye level, saying, okay, this person, this is the action, this is the owner, and then this is the due dates. Make sure that even in your meetings, right, when you are capturing those actions, you have an action owner. They might say, oh yeah, this we need to do this, we need to do that, we need this to be done in the next 2 weeks. At the end, when they finish talking, you said, who is taking this action? Who is the action owner? Make sure you have an action owner assigned to every action that is captured in the meeting. And if you are not sure of some of the actions, before you circulate it out to the general project team or the attendees of the meeting, you can cross-check it with maybe your line manager or even someone that is in the meeting. You can always cross-check that with them. Yes, please, Deji.
So it's just a question. Do you have like a template for
Or post.
the actions? If you've got if you're sending actions out, do you have like a template, or if you're doing? I know you said you don't do MOM. I mean minutes of meetings. So
You said MON. What is the MON?
MOM, minutes of meetings.
Oh, okay. I don't do a minute.
So,
Yeah.
But you do actions. Do you have a template that can, I've seen actions, I mean, where you have it in tabular forms and you
Yes.
have columns and you have headings. So do you have which you can show us just to have a good idea of how it looks like?
I can dig that out while we're having conversation, but and then it depends on the organization, right? Some people use Excel spreadsheets to track actions, so they have like an action log, and they track it in terms of saying who is the action owner, what is this action related to, the title, what is the description of the action, when is the due date of it, and what is the comment. So sometimes the actions need to be reviewed. Let's say it's a delivery review session now, or is a progress status meeting that you capture the actions. It needs to be reviewed at the next session to find out what is the update of it. And as a PMO, you need to, prior to that meeting, you need to chase the people that have the actions. Oh, you got actions during this last status meeting session, checking what is the status of this meeting. Do we have any update? Has this action been completed? Do you have anything to support the action? So you put a comments section into it and you use that. And then another way that people do this is in SharePoint. I've seen where they have with their raid log, they have an action log on SharePoint as well. The way they, I don't have a picture of the SharePoint, but the way you set up different columns in SharePoint that shows for raid, saying, okay, raid, risk owner and all of that, they have another separate one that shows the action as well, the action log. And the key things that needs to be in the action log is what's the reference. You need to have a reference number to it to understand the numbering. And then you need to have the date. What date was this action raised? Who raised this action? Who is the action owner? what is the action about? What's the title and the details of the action? What is the due date? So actions need to have due dates as well to say, okay, this action needs to be done in the next 1 month. And so that will help you to be able to chase those actions. And then you have a comment section to say what is happening, how the action is progressing. And then you have a status section as well that states, okay, is this action still open, or is it closed, or is it an action that has been postponed? But right now, I don't have like a template that I could show you. I could go into my archive and see if there's anyone, but those are some of the informations that need to be in your actions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean that would be helpful if you have one. But the way you described it, the way you described it as well is good, because you've given us a kind of description of how it will look like in terms of headings.
Yes.
So my second question is, when you send meeting invites, must
Mhm.
everybody attend?
The key people need to be there, because the essence of the meeting is to drive out an outcome. So you need to have the right key people at the meeting. That's why you have to be proactive in sending it ahead of time to block it in their calendar. And that is where you have the track attendance as well. You don't track attendance on the day of the meeting. Well, you might do if the meeting is around 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and by 9 a.m., you can do your track attendance and see people that have accepted or declined. Most people that decline, they will always give you a reason. They'll say, oh, there's a clash, or I'm away, or something. But the people that haven't done, and if those people are key people, then that might be giving you the thoughts or what you should do, rather, in terms of, do we need to cancel this session? Because these are the key people that needs to make those decisions in the meeting. The ones that are none, you need to, be checking with them to make sure that they will be in attendance.
Okay, because I've seen a situation where you have two key people there, in that you invite two key people. So I've seen a situation where you make one of them optional. I mean, that's where I'm trying to get at. So you don't, if you have two key people in a department, you just need one of them that can make decisions. So you don't have to invite both, make them compulsory. You can make one of them optional. That's
If
where
they are required attendees, right? And if they are two key people and you have given, they believe in each other's authority and decision making, yes, that is fine. You can, but perfect, because one person can say, yeah, this person wouldn't mind with us. Or another thing is, if those people are not able to attend and you have one person that is able to attend, you can communicate it to them to say, okay, this is a decision that has been reached at the meeting. Are you happy with it to go ahead as well? That's after the meeting, after that decision has been made, just to make sure that you get their own decision via maybe writing and it's been documented, so that they won't come back and say, yes, oh no, I didn't agree to it, I wasn't at the meeting. So you keep them also informed by sending out the outcome and the decision that has been reached in the meeting. There are a few, and sorry, go on, Goke.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to what you said, Mary. So there's certain meetings that are part of the governance of projects, regular meetings, either the weekly team meeting or the more senior meetings like a steering group meeting or project board meeting or STECO, or even the CAB that Mary has talked about, change approval board, change management board, those governance boards. Usually what you would have for those meetings are what you call terms of reference. And in the terms of reference, it would establish the reason why you hold those meetings, the frequency of those meetings, the people you need if decisions are being made, because you got to be quorate. That's another word you got to get used to. Core just means, do we have the right people needed to make certain decisions? If you have a change approval board, for example, before decisions are made, certain key people in key positions have to be there. And if they're not going to be there and they haven't got a delegated person to represent them, as Mary said, the meeting most likely wouldn't go ahead because you're not core, you can't make decisions. Now, those are regular governance meetings, but for everyday meetings, i.e., I need to discuss an issue with Mary and yourself, those are not governance meetings. They're meetings you have as part of progressing the project. You may not have a terms of reference. And in those instances, if you're not able to attend and you delegate someone to attend on your behalf, that's fine. It means the person knows enough to be able to contribute and add value for us to move on. But for regular governance meetings, like the CAB that Mary talked about, for steering group meetings or SteerCo, whatever word you call it, or project board, program board, those sort of boards will have terms of reference. Certain key positions have to be there. And if they're not going to be there, they delegate people to attend on their behalf. And if you don't have those key people there, again, as part of the terms of reference, it will say, if we don't have post X, post Y, post Z there, we can't make a decision. It means you're not queried. It means you can have the meeting, but you can't make any decisions. So this is where what Mary said earlier, you checking whether the people are attending or not is key. Because if the key people are not going to be there and they haven't sent someone to, as delegated in that position, it means you can have the meeting for information purpose, but you can't make decisions. It's already said that in terms of reference.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Goke. Does that answer a question, Mr. DJ? I think so. We have lots of hands and we have, okay, and I have a question in the box here as well. Dele said, do you have a battle rhythm template that has details of the meetings within the project with inclusion of the meeting description, required attendees? Battle rhythm. I don't know what battle rhythm is. But anyway, I think I understand the question. The question is asking if we have templates on the details of the meeting. So at the beginning, I mentioned governance framework, and that covers practically everything that is required. So it would say, these are the, for this type of project, these are the governance that needs to happen. These are the meetings that need to happen. There isn't one fit size for all, but the key regular ones that is common to every project or every programs are your RAID management, your change management, your SteerCo or progress update meeting. Those ones are very key because you need to provide a regular update on how the project is progressing. Every 2 weeks, every week, every month is dependent on the organization and what has been written in their governance framework. And that would tell you, using your RACI, we've talked about the stakeholders analysis, using your RACI, even in that governance framework, you will see who are the people that are responsible, who are the people that that needs to make those decisions, because it wouldn't be just a project team that will be there that will make that decision. There are key stakeholders that are required. So you have those information, and it varies by organization. There isn't one size fit for all. In terms of the meeting descriptions, you have to use your own judgment to understand what you wanted to pick out of this meeting, and who are the people that will give you those outcomes that you expected from the meeting. I don't know if that answers your question. Attendees output. Can we still see my screen? Yeah, okay. Oh, no, I'm just trying to show the question rather. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any other contribution to that question. Okay, I think Richie and Amelia were raising hands earlier, but because we were involved in other conversation, they've stopped. Richie, do you still want to ask a question? Do we still have Richie here? Can't see. Please drop off. We have Amelia. Do you want to ask question? Okay, it seems no more questions. Do we have any other questions? Next week is our final session. Can we pause the recording, please? Wait, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, while the recording is on, I will stop sharing because I wanted to show, I want to show the the deliverable tracker that I said. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is just a, I was mentioning about the stage gate state and the different deliverables that are required, right? So this is just one of the things that we just put together in our ladderback session last year. And yeah, so for opportunity assessments, these are the key deliverables. These are the key deliverables. And then for scope development as well, these are the key deliverables. And if you can see this column here, on Gates assurance document rate financial, you can see that they are all across different, the different phases of the project. That means they are live documents or deliverables that would be maintained at the beginning of the project through to the end of the project. Yeah, so just to show us the different stages and gates and what is required. This diamond star is just like there's a gate. So there's a gate like what I had shared in the previous session. And yeah, so go back to deliverable tracker, right? I've just put one of those deliverables here from here. I've just put it in a deliverable tracker. And so here is just saying what is the reference. You can assign a reference to it. You can say the product type, is it just work related or is it gate related deliverables for this one? And then you can say if it's a project related deliverables or business change deliverables. There could be so many options. I've just done like a drop down. So BC is a business change. Well, but feasibility report will be project deliverables. And then I've put, is this required at this stage of the project, right? And I'll put yes. And sometimes you can put no if it's not required. You know, I mentioned earlier on that your deliverable tracker will help you to know which of the deliverables are required that you need to continuously track. And you need to go back to your governance framework as well to be able to understand key deliverables that are required at each phases of the project. And if there are exceptions, so because this is required, we don't need to put any exceptions to it. Another thing is, there is the recording will be shared at the end of the session. People asking about the recording. And the other thing is the rack status. So rack status is you tracking how that deliverable is going. So if it is red, I'll do a color conditional formatting here. If it is red, that means this is seriously at risk of us meeting it for the gate. And here is saying this document, is it an initial document? Is it the final document? Is it an updated version? Because this is a feasibility document or deliverable. You can say it's an initial one. So I'll put it on is green. So as the project is progressing, you keep tracking on it. It's still initial. Do we have business case? Yeah. So oh no, so it will be updated. Sorry. So some of them, it could be like the PID now. You won't create the PID. That's when you won't create PID. PID is a project initiation document at the beginning of the project. You probably start creating it from stage gate 1, stage 1. So it will probably be the initial one at that gate, and then it could be updated as you're progressing through the stage of the project. So this is just form of example to say you have go to your governance frameworks. That will give you the understanding or list of the required deliverables for each phase of the project. Then you put them here and state what is required, what is related to, and then you can track it to see if it's on progress or if it's if it's amber, that means there's a risk, but it's something that we can work towards. And if it's green, that means it is on track to deliver or to meet that gate stage. So I think that's just one of the examples I thought I would share with us before the end of the session as well. Okay, everyone, I'll stop sharing. Do we have any questions? Thank you so much for your presence today. Any questions?